If you're shopping for a new compact mainstream family SUV, there are no shortages of choices out there, especially those that are powered by internal combustion engines. However, what if you need a vehicle like this, but you want to try your hand at going electric or electrified? Well, that brings me to two of the newest additions for 2021. On my left is the brand new 2021 Volkswagen ID.4, an all-electric SUV from the People's Company, fortified, of course, this year with a dual-motor all-wheel drive setup. And of course, on my right is a more traditional option. This is the Toyota RAV4 Prime, a plug-in hybrid version of America's best-selling crossover SUV. So if you guys are trying to decide between going all electric or a plug-in hybrid, stay tuned to the end of this video because we're going to drive both the ID.4 and the RAV4 Prime. We're going to find out which one of these options is truly the better pick for you. Now, I know for some of you, trying to compare a plug-in hybrid to an electric vehicle just sounds sacrilege, but keep in mind that when Volkswagen designed the ID.4, they wanted this vehicle to be a genuine alternative to something like the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, or in this case, the RAV4 Prime. And the cool thing about both of these vehicles, they start at just under $40,000, 38 grand for the RAV4 Prime, 39.9 for the Volkswagen ID.4. Both vehicles also qualify for the full $7,500 tax credit. Now, of course, these are the more fully equipped versions. In fact, the ID.4, they're fully loaded with the dual motor all-wheel drive, and the Pro S and the Gradient package is a little over 50 grand. The RAV4 Prime over there with the XSE premium package is also right around $50,000. This is before the $7,500 or $7,500 federal tax credit. Now let's talk about the styling of these two vehicles because they couldn't look more different, to be honest. I mean, the RAV4 definitely has a more conventional design to it. In fact, if you guys prefer your SUV to actually look like an SUV, you're going to want this vehicle. It also is the one that's going to do more off-roady things because Toyota offers 8.3 inches of ground clearance on the RAV4 versus just 6.7 on the ID.4. In contrast, the ID.4's styling looks a little bit more modern and futuristic, but it also kind of looks like a van from certain angles. I don't particularly love the styling of the ID.4, but let's talk about the differences, of course, between the two front ends. Now, the RAV4 Prime comes standard with full LED headlights. This is the XSE premium model, or the XSE model, which also includes these LED accents on the lower part of the bumper. You can see the high beams are also LED along with the low beams, and you get an incandescent turn signal. These headlights are also automatic high beams, and they're also adaptive, so they turn whenever you turn the wheel. The front end also has a more traditional shape. As you can see, there is a grille here with an actual opening because there's still an internal combustion engine. The sensor for the radar cruise control lives behind the blue accented Toyota logo. And in this bright red exterior color, which Toyota calls supersonic red, this is actually still a really good looking car. And believe, if you can believe it, the RAV4 is going to get some updates for 2022. Now, in contrast, let's take a look at the ID.4 because this styling is very similar to the concept that VW showed a couple of years ago. Now, first of all, you're going to notice it offers also full LED headlights, although this is the upgraded LEDs that you get with the Statement package. You can see you have a full LED turn signal, which is nice. The LED headlights look a little bit more upgraded and more modern versus the RAV. And then you can see here, a cool thing at night is this area of the grille actually lights up along with the Volkswagen logo. So this has a very distinctive look at night that really makes this car stand out. But unfortunately from this angle, it also kind of looks like a van. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think is the better looking vehicle from the front fascias. Looking at the side profile of both of these compact SUVs, you'll be surprised to hear that they're actually about the same size overall length. The ID.4 measures 180.5 inches long. The RAV4 is slightly longer at 180.9 inches long. They're also roughly the same width at around 73 inches wide. The RAV is about 2 inches taller, which you can tell because the RAV sits up about 2 inches higher in the ground clearance as well at 67.5 inches versus 65.5 inches for the ID.4. The difference is in the wheelbase. The Volkswagen has a longer 108-inch long wheelbase, which is almost 3 inches longer versus the RAV's wheelbase, which is just under 106 inches. But you can see here, the RAV definitely has a more traditional shape, especially when you look at the side. It's a little boxier. Toyota offers the two-tone roof color combinations as well on the XSE. Like this particular one here, the supersonic red really pops. This is, of course, unique to the XSE if you guys want the two-tone package. The wheels, you can see Toyota puts a 19-inch wheel on the XSE wrapped in 235/55 series all-season car tires or road tires. In contrast, the ID.4 has a larger wheel. This is a 20-inch wheel that you get with the statement package and the gradient package, I'm sorry. They're wrapped in 235/50 series tires, which is the same width actually as the RAV4. The Volkswagen definitely kind of has a more minivan shape. From this angle, I'm not really the biggest fan of the ID.4's design. I actually much prefer the RAV4's more boxier shape, but let me know in the comments section below if you guys like the more kind of wagon van look of the Volkswagen or the more traditional boxier shape of the Toyota. Looking at the rear of these two crossovers, you can see again, this is where you're going to notice the height difference. The RAV, like I said earlier, is 2 inches taller overall in height. I also like the fact that Toyota offers a more traditional roof rack, although I think Volkswagen also offers that same option on its roof rails where you can add that. My car, I actually added those accessory roof rail crossbars, which definitely give it a more rugged look. Now, the rear taillight assemblies, let's take a look at the differences here. The RAV4 has kind of an LED combination. You can see the brake lights and the taillight is LED. The reverse light and the turn signal is just an incandescent. I also added the black emblem package, which definitely kind of makes it look a little bit better with the blacked out look. I don't really like how Toyota puts this silver bar here. I think I would have preferred if that was body colored. It kind of clashes with the black lower bumper that you get. At least it is a painted black design. And then of course, because this actually has a gas engine, Toyota decided to put twin chrome exhaust tips on the back, along with those integrated parking sensors, which again, makes the RAV look a lot more traditional. In contrast, the ID.4, I think looks better from the rear. I think Volkswagen did a good job, a better job versus the side profile on the front of this vehicle. You can see the taillights are completely all LED in design, with another full LED that kind of extends through, connects the two taillight modules together. I like the white Volkswagen logo with the white Volkswagen ID.4 badge. This, however, does not light up like the one in the front, which is kind of okay with me. The turn signals are LED along with the reverse lights. VW does put more more black plastic here, unpainted black plastic on the rear bumper. And then of course, because it's an electric car, there are no visible exhaust tips. Now let me show you guys the cargo area really quick. The ID.4 is pretty spacious back here, and VW says it helps make up for the fact that it doesn't have a frunk. You get just over 30 cubic feet of space with the second row seats up. Fold that down, it expands to around 64 cubic feet of space, which is great. Underneath the floor here, there is a pretty good amount of storage, and then if you open this up, you can see no spare tire. Instead, you just get a fix-a-flat kit, so that's something to keep in mind if you guys like that. You can also store the onboard charger in there, which is great. This model also has a power liftgate, which is what you expect. In contrast, the RAV4's more traditional shape does give you a little bit more space in the trunk. Not by much though, surprisingly. The RAV offers around 33 cubic feet of space with the second row seats up. If you fold them down, it expands it to just under 70 cubic feet of space, which is again more by about 5 cubic feet versus the VW, and that's all because of the shape of the vehicle. It just gives you a little bit more room. If you open this up here, you can see the Toyota does give you a temporary spare tire, so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit like the Volkswagen. So now that we talked about the exterior design differences between these two vehicles, let's hop into the interior, and I'm hopping into the modern option first, or the more modern option, the Volkswagen ID.4. Now, first of all, here's the key fob for the vehicle. I actually like the new Volkswagen key fob that they put on this vehicle. It feels really nice. It's heavy. It's got just the right amount of buttons on it. Sadly, Volkswagen does not offer their phone as a key feature, but neither does the Toyota. But if you approach the Volkswagen, you're going to notice the door handles are definitely more futuristic. But I also think that VW had a missed opportunity here because this doesn't even actually open. Instead, it's just a little pad on the back to open the door handles. I would have preferred if VW just made the door handles missing or hidden, kind of like what Tesla does, which I don't even like the Tesla one, but I like what Ford does with the Mach-E. If the power goes out, there are options where you can basically open this actual handle itself, I believe. But because it's just a touchpad, when you open the door, you can see the interior of the ID.4 definitely has a very futuristic and clean, modern look to it. And I particularly like this tester here with the kind of moonstone gray or moonlight gray exterior with this kind of two-tone brown and black interior. You can see the seats also are pretty comfortable and supportive, actually. I don't like the way the seats look. But I do like how ID is kind of embossed into the actual seat back. The steering wheel also looks nice and modern with the new Volkswagen logo. And then you can see the door panels have that same kind of brown color for the inserts. You have piano black plastic trim, aluminum accented or silver painted plastic on the door handles. And then what really annoys me, however, are the window controls on the ID.4. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But there is also some nice ambient lighting in this vehicle where you can interchange the color. And the seats offer a 10-way adjustment with a 2-person memory, and surprisingly, there's actually a massage feature. The seat back lumbar cushion basically is a massage, but it doesn't work quite as well as some other luxury vehicles, so kind of keep that in mind. But stepping inside the inside of the ID4's interior, you do get a sense that it sits up a little higher, but not quite as high as you'd expect for most other SUVs. When I shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk, which I expected it to be a little bit more like a Bankfold slam because it is a German vehicle. But once you're inside the ID4, the interior definitely feels open and airy. In fact, it almost feels a little minivan-like because the dash is so expansive. And unlike the RAV4 Prime, when I get in the vehicle, there is a start-stop button right here on the steering column, but that's only used for emergencies. Basically, once your butt is in the seat, just put your foot on the brake and it turns everything on and it allows you to put it into gear. And that also will release the steering wheel. That's how you turn it on. There is no, starter noise or anything like that. As soon as I put my foot on the brake, that's how it turns on all the electronics. And then once I put it into gear, that's when it actually knows I'm ready to drive. But once you turn that on, you're going to notice there's a 5.8-inch display over here and a 12-inch display over here. The 12-inch display is optional, of course. The standard display is a 10-inch display, and this looks fairly nice. I actually like how big it is. I like how it's a widescreen orientation. It allows you to put the CarPlay up entirely. And you also have a secondary screen here that shows you all your useful information that you don't get in something like a Tesla. But again, Volkswagen doesn't want you to compare this to a Tesla. They want you to compare it to something like a RAV4. So we're going to be doing that. Now, in terms of the interior materials, I mentioned earlier soft touch plastic on the upper part of the door panels. Soft touch right here, although it's got some faux stitching on the entire area of the dashboard. Up there, you can see it's a hard touch plastic. And I'm noticing there is a build quality issue here. That doesn't really fit very well, which doesn't give me a great impression of quality. But you can see the steering wheel, it's heated, which is nice. It's got a flat bottom design, which I love. Touch sensitive buttons, which some of you may not like. No paddles on the wheel. You do have a nice new Volkswagen emblem here. The horn sounds super dinky. I don't like the way the horn sounds. I imagine some owners are going to replace that. And then over here you can see on the screen there are a lot of touch sensitive buttons. So you're going to find a much more modern look in here. And if you like that, then you're going to like this. But what I also found annoying is the fact that this area right here where the volume and the climate, this doesn't light up at night. This lights up at night, but not this. So it seems like a very cheap omission from Volkswagen, or a missed something, like they almost forgot to add that. And then in terms of the infotainment, you can see it's got wireless CarPlay, which is lovely. It connects to my phone pretty seamlessly. And then you can see here this background for the screen, you can actually change the color if you'd want. When you change the red, it also changes the red lighting throughout the cabin. So great ambient lighting in this vehicle, but missed opportunity how this area here doesn't light up at night. I found that was dark and it was hard to find, although you can rectify that by just using the steering wheel controls, which this is lit up, but then you've got the climate controls. Now, because this is their newest infotainment system, it does have features where it has the smart voice command. So I can say something like, "Hey ID," "Hello ID," "My butt is cold."
This function is currently not available.
And usually she'll turn on the heated seat a little bit higher for me, but sometimes it doesn't always work. So great looking software, but it actually needs to be updated significantly. And I hear that VW has that in Europe, but not yet in America. So that's a little bit frustrating. In terms of the audio system, you just get a premium 10-speaker stereo, but it's not Fender. It's not Harman or anything like that. It's nothing special. It's not their upgraded audio system. It's just a premium VW one. It sounds okay, but for the money, I think VW should have done more. Down here, you can see there's another missed opportunity where there's a completely empty area here where they could have really put something there for storage. You have two cup holders here, big bin right here where a wireless phone charging pad, two USB-C charging ports, more storage over there, which is nice. I like how the armrests here are kind of infinitely adjustable, which is kind of nice. This is a very Volkswagen thing here. I do like that. You have two more USB-C ports back there. And then massive glass roof, but the glass roof does not open, which would be nice, but at least they give you a sunshade over there. So if you can block out the sunlight if you guys don't want the sunlight. So overall, this interior definitely feels modern, but it is missing some touches that you'll find in the RAV4. For example, I don't have a heads-up display. They don't offer that. And I don't have cooled seats. They don't offer that. And the panoramic moonroof does not open, along with a premium branded stereo system. So there's a couple things that I think Volkswagen should have added. And this is probably the worst annoyance, is the fact that the window controls here, you can see you have one touch for both the windows, but if you want to access the rear window, you have to touch that, and that will basically allow you to control the rear windows. And if you touch and hold this until it blinks twice, when it's blinking, that's how you can control all four from just one switch. It seems to be quirky you know, in an electric car way, I guess, but it also is annoying because if you're just trying to access all 4 windows, I would have preferred an extra set of switches here. It just wasn't necessary. So that's something that VW needs to, I think, address whenever they refresh this car. So now that we've taken a look at the modern interior of the ID.4, let's hop into the RAV4 and show you guys a more conventional but surprising experience. You can see here's the key fob for the RAV4 Prime. Toyota doesn't offer any phone as a key either. The fob is nicer than other Toyota products, but it doesn't feel quite as nice as what you get in the ID.4 in terms of just the quality feel. Now, opening the door, you can see very conventional door handle here. You pull it, it opens the door, which some of you may actually prefer. Now, if you guys prefer also a different interior color, Volkswagen offers a lighter color as well. Sadly, the Prime only offers this black soft text leatherette interior with the red stitching. You can get it with cloth if you guys go for the base or SE trim, but this XSE premium package compares very well, of course, to the ID.4. You can see Toyota offers a 10-way power adjustable driver's seat as well with 2-person memory, which you'll find over here. No massaging seats, but unlike the Volkswagen, you can get heated and ventilated seats in the RAV4, so that's a really nice addition. You can also get a heated wheel, which my tester has, or which my car has. And then in terms of the door panel materials, you can see this is a soft touch injection molded plastic with some stitching, soft touch here, and conventional window switches. All 4 are one touch up and down, which is what I expect. Although I will say the switches don't feel quite as tactile and high quality as what you find in the Volkswagen. Now, getting inside the vehicle, you definitely get a sense that the RAV4 sits up higher. You have 8.3 inches of ground clearance versus 6.7. And then when I shut the door has a tinnier sound when it shuts, so the Volkswagen has a slightly more solid feel, which I kind of expected. It's a Volkswagen. Now, look, starting the vehicle up, the RAV4 has a conventional starter button right here that says power. You have to push that with your foot on the brake. The Volkswagen, you just put your foot on brake. There's no button to push. And then when you turn the vehicle on, you can see the interior definitely looks so archaic in comparison. Now, keep in mind, Toyota is going to be showing a completely refreshed RAV4 for 2022. As of this filming, I haven't seen it yet, but they will be showing that to us in November. So be sure to keep a lookout for my first look video on that whenever I get a hold of that. But I'm anticipating Toyota is going to update the infotainment system in this vehicle. You can see there's the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is a wired connection. I've got to plug in my phone. There is a nice wireless charging pad over there, which is great. And then you have a 7-inch helper screen over here. So it's not all digital like what you get in the Volkswagen. And this is only 9 inches. The screen resolution just looks terrible in comparison. It's like the difference between an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 13 or something. The graphics just look awful, which is a shame. The materials, you can see soft touch padded on the dashboard over here with that faux stitching. It's also padded over here. I like the heads-up display. You can't get that in the Volkswagen. And the 12-speaker JBL sound system, or I believe it's 10 speakers, also sounds better versus what I hear in the Volkswagen. A lot of conventional hard buttons over here for the heated steering wheel. The full 360 camera, you push that button, you can see it gives you a bird's eye view 360. This is only included on the premium package RAV4 Primes, which is a little bit harder to find, and the graphics absolutely suck, but at least it gives you a full 360 camera with that 360 perimeter scan or whatnot. It is a nice feature, and you also get this digital rear view mirror, which you can't even get on the Volkswagen. So again, a couple of tech features in this vehicle that you can't get in the more modern interior of the VW. Now, in terms of the steering wheel, you can see the horn sounds a little bit more appropriate. You have paddles on the wheel, which actually control the gearing of the CVT. The steering wheel itself is a manual tilt and telescoping, which offers a great adjustability of range. The center stack over here, you can see a lot more conventional buttons. You have big knobs for the climate control, it's dual zone. You have conventional buttons for the heated and ventilated seats, which is great. You have a traction control off button over there, which Volkswagen buries into the screen annoyingly. And then when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's what the 360 top-down view looks, and you also get an actual backup camera. The graphics are terrible compared to what you get in the Volkswagen. And then when you go over here to the conventional GPS, you can see the Toyota system here is relatively easy to use, but it doesn't include over-the-air updates like what you get in the Volkswagen. Toyota has a new system that's in the Tundra, which I've showed you. This is their old system. Really hoping Toyota will put their new system in the refreshed RAV4 or the completely redesigned version. You can see a lot more conventional controls here with the transmission selector. This is for the eCVT. It's not a one-speed transmission like in the Volkswagen. You have a drive mode selector over here. where it's a lot more conventional versus the VW just had a push button or touch sensitive button, which was annoying. Cup holder over here, but surprisingly, I think the VW had a little bit more storage because it just had that big sliding bin. This also gives you a nice storage over here with 2 more USB ports, so a total of 3 USB ports. But at least like the tunnel over here takes up some space, whereas you had that freed up in the Volkswagen, but they didn't actually utilize it well. I think the seats are more comfortable in the RAV4 as well. I found it easier to get a more comfortable driving position, although the passenger side here does not adjust for height, which is kind of annoying. And then you can see here, there's no LED lighting in this cabin, but that's kind of an easy upgrade that you can do. The panoramic roof in this vehicle definitely isn't as big as the one in the VW, but unlike the one in the Volkswagen, you can see the roof does open, which is definitely a great feature to have. This is only included if you guys spend the extra like couple $1,000s, $3,000 for the premium package, so that's something to keep in mind. Glove compartment, you can see it's big. I've got a lot of crap in there. There's also a little bit of a storage shelf over there. So overall, the interior of the RAV feels not quite as open and airy, but it also gives you a higher seating position, feels a lot more conventional, and it's full of tech features that you didn't expect to find in a RAV4. Let's take a look at the back seat of the ID.4, and this is where the Volkswagen offers plenty of space. In fact, they say you get around 38 inches of legroom back here. This is one of the most spacious in the segment, and it definitely offers more space versus the RAV4 Prime. Now, getting back here and shutting the door, you can see there is just a ton of space back here. I'm really impressed with the legroom, and I'm also impressed with the fact that you have a completely flat floor here, which is nice. You have rear seat air vents. You have 2 USB-C charging ports, like I said, and then there's a nice storage compartment here for a smartphone and a bigger one on both sides of the seat backs, which is definitely nice. In terms of the seat back themselves, they don't recline, which is something the RAV4 offers, but the cushion is nice and low. You do have an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders, which is great. And then, unlike the RAV4 again, the panoramic roof here is much larger. The opening it comes all the way back here over my head, which is great. And then you also have some LED lighting in the cabin, which is not something that you get in the RAV4. So again, you get a much more modern feel in the cabin. It's just more minimalistic. Sadly, there are hard touch plastics back here, so it's not kind of carried over from the materials in the front seats. Taking a look at the back seat, you can see the RAV4 definitely doesn't have quite as much room as what you get in the Volkswagen. In fact, I believe it has about an inch less legroom at around 37.5 inches, which is still pretty good. The battery pack actually lives underneath the back seat, so it does raise the seat up a little bit. And the seat also gives you a recline feature, which you don't get in the Volkswagen, but both seats fold down in a 60/40 manner. Now, getting inside, you can see the higher step-in height makes it a little bit easier to get into the back seat. And as I shut the door, you can see the back seat actually has the same soft touch materials, so they have actually better materials versus the VW, which is not what I expect from something like a Toyota. You also get legroom back here is also pretty good. There isn't a completely flat floor here, but you do get rear seat air vents. You do get 2 USB charging ports. You have 2 map pockets, but not that little nifty foam pocket like you get in the Volkswagen. And unlike the VW, you also have heated rear seats back here, which you only get on the premium package models. Which again, you have to spend a lot of money to get that. A nice armrest here that folds down, gives you 2 cup holders. You have that same red accent stitching in the Softex leatherette interior, the faux leather interior. And then above me, you can see the sunroof has this big bar that kind of cuts into your view. It doesn't go quite as far back as the one in the Volkswagen, but it's nice that they give you a Pano roof. So again, the VW has a little bit more space in the back seat, but this also has a little bit more features, and you have the option to recline the rear seats, which is nice. And even though it doesn't have LED lighting back here, it's still an easy change if you guys want to fix that. So overall, the back seat of the RAV is equally pleasant. So let's take a look at the powertrains of both of these vehicles. Now, the first thing you're going to notice right away if we go over to the Volkswagen, VW already has a fail here because this vehicle does not have an internal combustion engine, yet there is no frunk. VW actually said that they did that on purpose. It's just the general design of the vehicle. However, if you don't have a frunk and you're all electric, I think you are simply doing it wrong. In contrast, of course, the RAV4 Prime offers 3 different powertrain sources or power sources from underneath the hood. So obviously you can't have a frunk. Now let me start, of course, with the RAV4 because this combines a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated gasoline 4-cylinder engine that makes around 177 horsepower on its own. It runs on the Atkinson cycle. It's augmented by 3 electric motors. There's 2 at the front, and then there's one that powers the back axle that supplements another 179 horsepower. Toyota says the combined output is 302 when all the powertrains are working. You can hear the car is actually on right now, but it's not making any noise because it's running on electricity. The battery pack is an 18.1 kilowatt hour battery pack, which means you get around 42 miles of all electric range. And then if you guys run this car on gas only, it's going to get roughly 37 to 38 mpg combined, which is pretty decent numbers considering the fact that this is the most powerful RAV4 that Toyota has ever made. It all goes out through an eCVT. All-wheel drive is going to be standard. RAV4 primes can tow, I believe, a maximum of 3,000 pounds, so pretty decent towing and hauling capabilities. And you also get great performance because 0 to 60 is around 5.7 seconds. This vehicle weighs in at around 4,400 pounds. It'll take roughly 2.5 hours to recharge this vehicle from empty to full if you guys have that faster 6.6 kilowatt hour charger that's on board that you get with the premium package. Now, in contrast, the VW has twin electric motors. The rear motor offers up 201 horsepower, and then the front motor adds another 107 horsepower. The front motor is a new addition that just came out for 2021. VW was delaying the release of that one until the end of the year. Combined output is 295 horsepower and 339 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure is a nice figure, and we don't actually know the torque figure on the RAV4, but because it's got twin electric motors, it's powered by an 82 kilowatt hour battery pack, which means this car will go roughly 249 miles on a full charge. If you guys don't get the statement package, 240 on this one because it does have the larger 20-inch wheels with the statement package. You'll get to 60 in about the same time. 5.7 seconds is what VW says. And on a level 2 fast charger or a normal charger, it'll basically take roughly 8 hours to fully recharge this battery from empty to full. It charges at about 11 kilowatt hours versus almost 12, which is almost double the speed of the RAV4. If you guys can find a DC fast charger, which this offers, the RAV does not, you can charge this vehicle's battery from 10 to 80% in roughly 38 minutes. So again, competitive numbers, but still behind some of its all-electric competition. Obviously, completely different versus the RAV because this is all-electric. The range on this vehicle, like I said earlier, 240 miles versus something like the RAV will do roughly 500 miles, so twice the range because it's got an internal combustion engine. The ID.4 is a lot heavier because of that heavy battery pack that lines the floor. This one here weighs in at around just under 5,000 pounds. It only has a 1-speed single gear transmission. So to start the driving portion off between this comparison test, I'm in the Volkswagen ID.4 because this is the fully modern version or interpretation of a family SUV. Remember, Volkswagen had something like the Toyota RAV4 right in their crosshairs when they were designing this as a competitor, not necessarily Tesla. They wanted it to be compared to a hybrid RAV4, a gas RAV4, a gas Tiguan. And now that I finally have this vehicle back home for a week to test, I've got my 0 to 60 testing equipment strapped in. It's working properly, unlike in Chattanooga, because I want to see which one of these vehicles is the quicker option. Obviously, I'm anticipating the Volkswagen to be the quicker because this is all electric. So now that we finally have the equipment working properly, which was a pain back in Chattanooga, we'll try doing a 0 to 60 test in it. And my first run, I got 0 to 60 in 5.68 seconds, which is basically right on Volkswagen's number. They said around 5.7 for the all-wheel drive model. And they were right. This vehicle definitely has plenty of punch. If you're coming from something like a Toyota RAV4, CRV, a Volkswagen Tiguan, this is going to feel properly quick. And it's nice because it does feel fast in everyday driving. Now, the one thing that annoys me about the ID.4, however, is the fact that VW has purposely tuned in lag. So as soon as my foot goes to the floor, it has acceleration, but there's a noticeable delay that they kind of built in to make the car feel more conventional. And I don't like that delay. I just want VW to give us and that full electric experience. But we'll try another one because I want to see if I can get the same consistent run. Still feels sluggish, and then all of a sudden around 30, you feel the full power kick in. And that run, I got 6.1 seconds there, which 5.68 to 6.1, that's a little disappointing to see such a big gap, but it wasn't the same stretch of road. So around the under 6 second mark is pretty agreeable for something like this. And I think Volkswagen has enough power for those of you who are comparing it to just conventional gas-powered or hybrid-powered SUVs. But the beauty about driving an all-electric SUV like this is the fact that when you do put your foot down, it's instantaneous, it's silent, little lag there, but the torque is there. I mean, 295 horsepower, 339 pound-feet of torque, certainly impressive numbers. And because it's dual motor all-wheel drive, there's no waiting. It just kind of takes off. It has plenty of power for those of you looking at conventional vehicles. And because the ID.4 has that battery pack, the 82 kilowatt hour battery pack lining the floor, the handling is actually impressive. The steering doesn't really do much in terms of feedback, but because the center of gravity is so low, you get a sense that the ID.4 is a German vehicle. It handles and rides well. Basically the sharpness could be improved, the braking feel could be improved. If VW decided to do like a GTI version of this, that'd be fantastic. Obviously they're choosing not to do something like that. They want to keep this a more conventional feel with a softer ride quality. And now that this vehicle is all-wheel drive, it does give you that snow traction that people want in an SUV. They also were able to lift up the ground clearance by 0.5 inches or 0.6 inches. It's still pretty low at 6.7. I sometimes get a feeling that I'm driving not necessarily an SUV, but like a minivan. Like the way the dashboard sits in this vehicle, how it's so expansive and you sit pretty far back, the view out of the front. I definitely get minivan, driving experience in this vehicle, but albeit a very quick minivan, it's nice. The seats are also soft and plush, although I do find it sometimes it took me a second to get comfortable in the seats. The heated seats are also nice. The heated steering wheel is nice. If I step on it here and then make a turn, you can feel the back end wants to step out, but the stability control is pretty quick to cut everything. And then in terms of the range, when I started this drive out, it had 260 or 257 miles of range on a full charge. That was with the climate control off. I turned the climate control on and it dropped to 250. That is more than what the EPA claims at 240 for this one. And in my week's worth of driving, I was able to verify that this will consistently do 240 to 250 miles on a full charge. I took it on a longer trip and it actually did that. And now we're kind of in a great temperature zone right now because it's about 52 degrees outside. We're in the fall here on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. So these are ideal temperatures, of course, for an electric vehicle. It's gonna like these temperatures. Not too cold, not too hot. But overall, nice driving vehicle. Visibility is good. There are a couple of annoyances about the ID.4 that really continue to bother me. I don't like the software in the infotainment system. It's a beautiful looking display, totally kills the RAV4 in that regard, but it didn't always work properly, and every time I started the vehicle up, it would take a second for it to actually allow me to change the radio function, to change the climate function. It would just constantly show keep waiting or please wait, and that really was annoying when I was trying to be in a hurry. But then of course this vehicle also feels like it's a little unpolished and unfinished at times. I mean, I still don't like the window controls where there's two buttons here for all four, and you have to cycle between a rear touchpad, a rear control touchpad that allows you to control the rear windows. I just think that they're trying to reinvent the wheel there. Wasn't necessary. It's cost cutting that wasn't necessary. And the blind spot indication, this car does come standard with Volkswagen's IQ Lite technology, or their IQ Lite driving technology. But right now, the blind spot indicator is showing that there's something there, and there's nothing there. I'm on a 2-lane back road, and there's nobody next to me, but it was still showing that there was a vehicle there. So I don't know why it's not working properly for this car, but it is kind of annoying. But that is a ton of fun, and you don't have to listen to a droney engine that you would find in something like the Tiguan, which this vehicle will smoke the Tiguan. It's a far more interesting car than the Tiguan. I'm just not entirely sure that VW has all of the software bugs worked out. You can tell that this is their first effort at a full EV, and it's a good one, but it also could use some more fine tuning and tweaking to make it even better. And that's kind of where I want Volkswagen to push the envelope and make this car better. And they can with software updates, but I'm just not entirely sure it's going to convince EV shoppers. This is an excellent option if you're switching from just a regular gas car to this vehicle, but if you're trying to compare this car to a Tesla or to a Mach-E, you're gonna notice some shortcomings that VW has done on purpose almost, like even the regen braking. This is in the full regen braking mode right now, and it's fine, but I want it to be even stronger so I can give me true one-pedal driving, and VW just doesn't do that. They did that on purpose because they didn't want to alienate people coming from a gas car to an electric car. But with all that said, let's hop into the RAV4 Prime, and let's see if it can beat the VW's 0 to 60 time and the overall driving feel. So now we have switched over to the conventional driving plug-in hybrid. Well, conventional is a relative word here. I mean, this is the most advanced plug-in hybrid that Toyota has ever done because remember, we get about 42 miles of all-electric range. I consistently beat that. Right now, I'm starting out at a full charge basically, and it was showing 48 miles of range. So pretty good range for a plug-in hybrid. Not great, obviously, when you're comparing it to the 240 that you get in the Volkswagen, but that's an all-electric car. Now, the one thing I do want to test, I'm on the same stretch of road. I want to see if this car can beat the Volkswagen 0 to 60 Sprint, which was 5.68 seconds. So now that I've got the vehicle in its hybrid mode, you have to be in this mode to get the full 302 horsepower. It's going to make a lot of noise, but we're going to try see if we can beat it. Really bad reaction there, but I did just beat it. I got 5.57 seconds, so 0.1 second faster in the prime, which is interesting. And you know what? I brake torqued it there, and this car didn't really like me brake torquing it. So we're gonna try it again on the same stretch of road where I got 6.1 in the Volkswagen and just see what the RAV4 can get, because why not? We've got the two cars back to back, and it's a great way to compare the driving dynamics. But I actually am a little surprised that this car is faster. I mean, Toyota says 5.7 for this vehicle, but the fact that it can beat that number, and even though you have to listen to the engine drone and whatnot, it's a little annoying. It's still a really impressive vehicle when you think of the 0 to 60 performance. Much better reaction time, and it's quick. 5.79 seconds on this same stretch where I got 6.1 in the Volkswagen. So the RAV is the quicker car, and that's hilarious considering the fact that this is a plug-in hybrid. It's got a noisy internal combustion engine that's making all the noise, but this car is more powerful, 302 horsepower versus 295, and this car also weighs significantly less. The Volkswagen is 4,900 pounds. This car is around 4,400 pounds, so you have a 500-pound weight advantage here. That's going to play into, effect here when you're talking about acceleration. So the Prime, when it's in its hybrid mode, plenty of power. This vehicle is fast. You just have to listen to the engine droning, which is a little bit annoying. But the cool thing about the RAV4 Prime is it has an ace up its sleeve. If I switch it over here to EV mode, just push a button over here, it goes to EV mode, the gas engine will actually shut itself off. And because I've got nearly 100% charge on the battery, it won't turn the gas engine on. Even if I put my foot down here, no noise. It stays in full pure electric mode, which is great for those of you who want to just drive around town without making any noise. I mean, that's the cool thing about the RAV4 Prime is unlike other plug-in hybrid vehicles, this car feels like an all-electric car when the battery has enough charge in it. When you have it in its pure EV mode, I can put my foot all the way to the floor. It's got that instantaneous torque. Actually, off the line, when my foot initially goes to the floor, this car to me actually feels slightly faster, because remember, Volkswagen is kind of tuning in some delay to make it feel more like a conventional car. This car, when my foot goes straight to the floor, it feels really quick off the line, but then it falls on its face as soon as you start accelerating and adding some speed, because remember, the electric motor only offers 179 horsepower on its own. The rest of the power is coming from the gas engine. So you have to have the gas engine working in order to get the full effect, the full 302 horsepower. But you can see here, just putting my foot down, accelerating, this is enough power for most people to tootle around town. In fact, I own this car, you guys know that by now, and I actually prefer driving this vehicle in EV mode. I hate it when the gas engine comes on because it is so noisy. I just much prefer the drive when it's in pure electric mode. It's just much more satisfying. It feels like a conventional, it feels more like an all-electric car versus a plug-in hybrid or a hybrid when the gas engine is just constantly buzzing away. Let's just try what the 0 to 60 is in all electric real quick. You can see here, it's all electric. Foot is to the floor. I don't know if we're gonna make it though. It's significantly slower in this mode. And I got 8.8 seconds there, so yes, a lot slower in all electric mode. The gas engine shaves off nearly over 3 seconds in the 0 to 60 time, so that's something to keep in mind. If you guys do drive it in all electric, it is going to be the slower car. But the cool thing about the RAV4 is it'll spin its tires out a lot more eagerly than the Volkswagen. That's because of the way the drivetrain is set up. Most of the power goes to the front wheels. The rear axle is only powered by a 53 horsepower electric motor, electric only at the rear. So this is why the car will do burnouts, front wheel drive burnouts all day long, which is hilarious. And really, the speed of this car is fun, but the handling is where the RAV4 Prime kind of falls on its face a little bit. The Volkswagen handles a lot better because of the heavy battery packs that are lining the floor. Now, this does have an 18 kilowatt hour battery pack that's underneath the rear seats, and you do feel that the weight balance is changed compared to a conventional RAV4, but you just notice the steering is a lot more light and numb in this vehicle. The body control motions are a little bit more clumsy in the RAV4 Prime. It's not horrible, but you can feel the suspension's a lot softer in this vehicle, which does give you a good ride quality. This car, I think, rides a little bit better than the Volkswagen. The Volkswagen's ride is a little more taut, a little bit more controlled, but this is definitely a little bit softer. It's a little more pillowy, which is not necessarily what I like, but if you want the softest ride possible, you're going to want this vehicle because Toyota has just simply tuned it that way. Now, comparing a plug-in hybrid to an electric car seems silly, but in this mode, it feels like I'm driving an all-electric car, which makes it really interesting to compare the two. In terms of visibility, the RAV4's is better out of the Volkswagen. You feel like you're sitting in an SUV because I'm actually sitting up a little bit higher. Toyota's driver assistance tech is also standard, but I find that it works a little bit better than the Volkswagen's. The blind spot monitoring works. It doesn't have this ghost that's telling me that there's somebody in my blind spot when there's nobody there. The adaptive cruise, I believe, works better in the Volkswagen. However, it's a little bit quicker to react. And then there are some tech features that this car has that the Volkswagen doesn't have. For example, I like the heads-up display. I like the digital rear view mirror that shows me, what's exactly behind, or I can go back to a conventional one if I want. And this car has a full 360 camera. That's stuff that you can't get on the Volkswagen, which is funny considering that the RAV4 feels like the much more conventional car. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the range, because the Volkswagen can go about 250 miles in the real world total range, which is great for an electric vehicle. The RAV4 only goes about 42 miles on all electric. 48 is what I usually get. And then when the gas engine kicks in, it can give you another 500 miles of range. I verified that. That's really good range. That's double the range of what you get in the Volkswagen. So there's where a plug-in hybrid has a significant advantage. If you guys regularly do longer trips and you want to go the farthest possible on a full tank of fuel or a full charge, get this vehicle because you can consistently do almost 550 miles when you combine the electric and the gas together, which is just unheard of. However, you still have to deal with that noisy gas engine, and you still have to stop at a gas station, which some of you really hate doing that. I'm actually one of those people. It's kind of an inconvenience, but it is also faster to just refuel a vehicle versus charging. Even though the Volkswagen can charge, its battery up in about 40 minutes, it's still 4 times the length as your average fuel stop, where you'd be there for 10 minutes to use the bathroom and probably refuel, stuff like that. So overall, yes, the RAV4 Prime is, the more archaic vehicle on paper, but this, I believe, is going to work for more people in the long term, unless you are fully adopting the EV lifestyle. I mean, this is a great stepping stone. The Volkswagen forces you to make more of a lifestyle change versus this kind of gets your toes wet. It gives you the taste of all electric driving for 50 miles. And for some people, that may be the deciding factor. And I was surprised to see that this is actually the quicker option in my real world 0 to 60 testing. So if you guys are trying to decide between going with a plug-in hybrid like the RAV4 Prime and an all-electric vehicle like the Volkswagen ID.4, getting a chance to drive both of these two vehicles back-to-back is a special, rare treat, and I'm really happy to be able to show you guys the exact differences, because on paper, these two cars couldn't be more different. In fact, this one here, completely all-electric, takes you about 8 hours to fully charge, gives you 240 miles of range, 295 horsepower, all-wheel drive. This is definitely the more modern option, and you really saw that in the way the vehicle delivers its power, the way you kind of have to fit it into your life. You have to adjust everything, which isn't really that hard to do. I've owned an electric car myself for 2 years when I had a Tesla Model 3, and it's a really simple change to make. However, this car itself also has a couple of quirks that I think don't really work. I mean, the window controls, which really bug me, the slow and buggy software infotainment system, which the Volkswagen clearly has the more superior looking infotainment system. I just wish that it worked all the time and more consistently like the RAV. And then for a vehicle that's around $50,000. It's missing some features that I would have liked to see, like a full 360 camera, like ventilated seats, like a heads-up display, which is curiously exactly what you can get in the RAV4 Prime, because this car starts at around $38,000 for the base SE. Keep in mind, this starts at $39,000, but if you want dual motor all-wheel drive, which more closely compares to this, the VW will cost you about $44,000 because it's around $3,700 to go with all-wheel drive. Now, of course, the RAV4 Prime is still not without its few issues. This is obviously not the sportier driving vehicle. The VW actually handles a little bit better. And then if you guys prefer something that's more modern, this car definitely has a more conventional look and shape. The interior is going to seriously disappoint if you guys really like big touchscreens with amazing graphics and over-the-air updates. That's simply not what the Toyota does. However, if you guys are looking for a commuter car that's going to give you realistically 500 miles of range on a full charge between the gas and the electric motor, and also give you around 40 to 50 miles of all-electric range. So this is the perfect car to kind of dip your toes into the electrified space. And that's precisely why the RAV4 Prime continues to be a hot seller, which Volkswagen will also tell you the ID.4 is the same thing. VW says that the #1 trade-in for this vehicle is actually a gas car. Most buyers who buy this are actually new to the Volkswagen brand and they're trading in a gas car. Versus I imagine most people who buy a RAV4 Prime are probably not new to the Toyota brand. Instead, you just want to trade in your old RAV4 and you want to dip your toes into the electrified space. Now, after of course spending some time with both cars, this is one that I actually own, I'm going to actually surprisingly pick the RAV4 Prime, because as much as I like the VW for its modern appearance on the inside and all-electric feel, I was surprised to see that the RAV is actually the quicker option. I think if you're going to live with the car and keep something for a longer period of time, I'm talking like 10 years, I probably trust the Toyota to be more reliable, and it'll also be probably easier to maintain. Even though this has a gas engine that you have to service once a year, the fact that you can drive it on all electric and it feels like an electric car around town when you have the battery charged makes this car an easy pick if you guys are looking for a small, compact family crossover and you want to dip your toes into the electrified space. With all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my very comprehensive overview between the 2021 Volkswagen ID.4 and the 2021 Toyota RAV4 Prime. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.